kind of crazy to me. There's no way this album is 10 years old.
I know,
And that
right?
that and that was the last time you put out a full album because your career has not exactly like gone downhill since then, quite the opposite. Like so it was the last studio album you did, and it was again another crazy fun fact at how it was like the first comedy album to debut at number one. Did you just figure like, okay, I'm done with albums? I checked that box. I set a world record. So like no more albums. Like why was that the last album?
I made that decision before the album came out. I thought, okay, this is the last album on my contract. After this, I don't want to be beholden to anybody because, I've been under the same record contract for 32 years. It was a 14 album deal, and Mandatory Fun was the last album. So at that
It
point,
was it was mandatory fun, wasn't
it
it?
was. I mean, that was maybe part of the reason for the title. But yeah, I just thought like, okay, this is it, and I'm not retiring, but I don't think I want to be on a label after this. I don't want to have to ask permission to do things. I don't want to owe anybody anything. And I just figured I'll just release things on my own terms after this. So it was just a very nice surprise and actually a wonderful mic drop to be able to have my last album debut at number one.
But much as Motley Crue decided to make albums again after the success of the Dirt movie, has the huge
Um,
success of Weird, and presumably finding a whole new audiences through the success of that movie, has that made you wanna maybe do another album? Or I mean, you're making music. I know there's this
yeah,
polka medley coming out next week, but like in terms of a full album, is that something you have thought about revisiting?
the thought of doing a full album doesn't excite me anymore, just because for a long time that's not felt like the best way for my music to get distributed because I like, and again, this seems a little ironic because I haven't been super prolific since my record deal ended, but I just always felt constrained that I had to wait until I had 12 songs recorded to then release them all at once. And it's hard to be super topical, with all of those songs if you have to wait until they're all done.
Right.
Um, so I just think, certainly since Mandatory Fun and still going forward, I think that the best thing for me to do is just to release material whenever I think of it and whenever I feel like it and not have to wait around.
Well, there's definitely a few tracks from this record, from Mandatory Fun, that I want to talk about, revisiting now. I mean, if anything, Foil, the Royals cover, is more relevant and topical now than it was 10 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean, tell me about the idea. It was all about conspiracy theorists, these literal tin hatters, and like, look what's come to pass. I know your music doesn't lend to be political very often, but it can be social commentary, and that song definitely was.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it, to put out some very heavy social commentary. It was all just, for a laugh. But I just was trying to think of what I could do with the Royals, and I thought of Foil, and I thought of the whole idea of the first half being just sort of like a silly song about food, like people are used to hearing from me, and then halfway through it takes a very dramatic turn. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was really funny, and I thought the music video could be really funny. And it's been amusing to me that some people think I'm being ironic with that song, and some people think I'm being serious. Like, is Al really part of the Illuminati, or is he telling secrets out of school? You know, is he drinking the adrenochrome?
That's hilarious. Do I mean, is there a reason why you don't usually go political? Because I imagine you are fans of certain political comics from,
Sure.
the golden age of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of, like Randy Rainbow's done amazing work. A lot of political humorists I'm fans of. And certainly I have my own political opinions, but I don't think anybody really needs to know what Weird Al's hot take on anything is. I'm here to just to supply an escape for people that want to kind of get away from hearing about politics all the time.
Much needed again in this day and age. Another song on Mandatory Fun. I'm curious, when you put out Word Crimes, did the Marvin Gaye estate later come after you? Because I was looking up, the track listing of it, and Marvin Gaye has a credit on a writing credit on Word Crimes.
I mean, they didn't come after me. I think all that happened was the bookkeeping changed. At some point, they're like, "Oh, instead of sending your checks to to Robin Thicke and Pharrell or whoever. Now you're sending them to Marvin Gaye state. So that was sort of like, that didn't even affect me in any way. I think that was just a bookkeeping change.
Okay. Well, that's good. Actually, but that sort of brings up the question. I'm surprised I've actually never asked you this. Is there any artist that you consider for yourself off limits to do a spoof of, either, just because like they're untouchable, or, they're gods to you, or because you just think it would be too difficult? Is there someone you would never try?
As an artist, I'd say no. I mean, I've certainly done parodies of some of my favorite artists, and there's a few that I haven't gotten around to, but not because I revere them so much that I think they're beyond parody. I think that anybody is fair game. I mean, there are certain situations, certain songs that probably would be tasteless to do parodies of. But in terms of people and artists, I think that nobody really should be off limits. I don't think, I think that anybody should be able to take a joke. And it's not like I'm, my parodies, as you know, are pretty good natured.
Right.
It's pretty rare if and when I go for the jugular. It's mostly just all done in good fun. And even when it's snarky, like with Nirvana or Lady Gaga, it's still all done in good fun. It's my famous line is, it's more of a poke on the ribs than a kick in the butt.
Speaking of tastelessness, that just makes me wonder. This wasn't a question I had planned, but like, are there any material? It doesn't have to be from Mandatory Fun; it could be your whole discography that you look back and you think that was funny at the time, but that didn't age well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I don't want to give specific examples, but certainly in the 80s and 90s, there was some language which was apparently okay at the time, and is not so okay in present day. And there have been a couple times when I'd be playing one of those songs in concert, and I would stop the song dead in the middle and say, "I'm sorry about using that word. When I wrote the song in the 90s, it had a different connotation," that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So yeah, I mean, I have to look at my songs as products of their age, and some of them didn't age as well as others.
I'm so bummed that Trapped in the Drive-Thru is probably off limits, though, because that was one of the funniest things you ever did. But that's because of who the artist originally
Yeah,
was.
and that's the whole thing. Where, like, can you really separate the artist from the art? And is a parody of something that's ordinarily off limits still okay? I mean, these are things that I kind of wrestle with when I'm putting together my set lists for
Yeah.
live shows. And you just kind of have to gauge how the public feels at any particular time.
Did you start doing either of the Michael Jackson spoofs again? Because I know for a while, when like Leaving Neverland came out or whatever, it was not the right time to be doing those. But I feel like maybe now people would be more amenable to it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly Eat It figured very heavily in the biopic, so it's
Yeah.
not like we were shying away from it. So yeah, I'm not going to discuss what is or isn't on the set list for the next tour, but I would
Mm.
say that everything's on the table.
Plus, you wrote those Michael Jackson songs. I mean, Weird set everybody straight. Those
There
were
you
your
go.
songs. You wrote them. You should claim them.
Yeah.
What's interesting though, going back to Mandatory Fun, is I'm looking here at the set list or the track list, and there were a lot of like in the style of like there was a Pixies, there was a Foo Fighters, there was a Southern Culture on the Skids, Crosby, Stills and Nash, the Big Cat Stevens one at the end. Like, is that harder to do a song that's spoofing an artist, but it's your own original song? You're not taking, like, how do you approach that?
It's a lot more work. I mean, with the parodies, obviously, the songs and the arrangements are completely written. And when I teach the band, it's like I, buy them a CD or an MP3 and say, "Here, learn this. Or here's the edit. Here's, we're doing it in F sharp now, and that's it." And with the pastiches, yeah, there's a lot more work involved. It's more of a labor of love because I try to familiarize myself with an artist's entire body of work and study every song and make notes and try to figure out, what are that artist's idiosyncrasies? What are the little stylistic things that make that artist recognizable as that artist? And then I take all those notes and I hopefully have a good idea for the song, and I put it all together. And sometimes I'll spend months working on one song. I think when I did Genius in France, my Frank Zappa pastiche. I mean, that literally took several months to write and arrange that because there was a lot going on.
I
That
imagine
was
they're
very
the artists.
complicated.
Yeah, I imagine the artists. I mean, obviously, lots of artists have said it's like the ultimate feather in the cap honor to be spoofed by you, but it's even more so if you are doing that treatment to them where you're like studying their whole body of work. Do you have stories of people like the Pixies or whoever being like, holy cow, you basically, I mean, it's a whole other level of tribute. They got to be honored by that.
Yeah, I don't get permission ahead of time for those style parodies, but yeah, I'm trying to think if I became friends with the Pixies before or after. Like, I think I was friends with them before actually, so I
Mm.
was able to send them that and say, "Hey, look what I did."
I
So
don't,
that was nice. But yeah, I mean, I do know some of the people whose work I pay homage to in that way, and others I'm just just a fan and just trying to pay my tribute to them.
I don't know if people know you do originals, but I don't know if they know you do these kind of originals as much. Like I don't know if you're as known for doing that.
Probably not. I mean, certainly the hardcore fans are well aware of it, but if a casual Weird Al fan may just think of me as the guy that does parodies and not know that literally half of my recorded output is original work. So yeah, that's something that we're trying to create more awareness of that by doing the vanity tours and things like that. Well, look, he's doing a whole concert tour, not playing any parodies at all.
What's your favorite original? I know what mine is. I've talked about it with you before, but of your originals, what's the one you're most proud of?
It changes. I remember when I finished Mandatory Fun, I was very happy with Jackson Park Express. That was a fun one for me to do. But there's a lot. I mean, it changes daily.
It's either One More Minute or Albuquerque for me.
Oh,
But all right, so I don't have much time with you left. So let's revisit the thing I ask you about every time I talk with you.
okay.
Super Bowl. Super Bowl. Now, right now at the moment, the odds-on favorite to headline the Super Bowl in next year is Miley Cyrus, which I'd be happy about. But I've been wanting the owl thing for a long time, and you do in the polka medley, you do flowers, so you could at least do a cameo
Right.
with her during that. But I mean, I know you think I'm joking, but I actually think it would be the one thing that would bring this country together. Like I feel like everyone likes Weird Al. Like no one doesn't like Weird Al. Like,
Well, that's nice to hear.
would you
Uh,
do it if they asked?
I suppose so, sure. I mean, if Miley Cyrus really needs accordion backup, I suppose I could fill that job.
Well, I mean, you did tell me years ago that you had, if it happened, I know you were probably just joking around, but it would be the idea that you would perform, but like then the real people who you parodied would join you. I think that would, like Joan Jett would come for I Love Rocky. I
Right.
think that would be epic. But the other serious thing, I'm completely serious. I've never asked you about this. And I know you're a humble person, so you'll just laugh it off. But has there, has anyone ever asked you about the possibility of you getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? There aren't too many comedy musicians, if any, in the Hall of Fame. You're the most
Oh, there are
successful.
none. I'm pretty
Are there
sure.
none? Okay. Well, you're the most
Yeah.
successful. We just said you set a record with going to number one with Mandatory Fun, and you've had this very lasting. You've been eligible for a long time. You've had this lasting career that outlasted a lot of the people you've parodied.
Mhm.
Like, how do you feel about that? Do you think there's a chance that you would ever get on the ballot?
Um, I suppose there's a chance. I mean, I know I'm sort of a fan favorite, and there have been petitions going around, and I think last time I checked, I was like, they have like a touch screen at the museum where fans can say, "Who do you think should get into the Rock Hall?" And I'm consistently around number 10, I think. So I mean, it's not out of the question. I will say I'm not losing any sleep over it. It's nice to have an accolade like that, and I would be, of course, very honored if that ever happened. But at the same time, it's one of those kind of things where I'm also fine if that never happens. My life goes on.
Yeah, obviously. But I mean, why do you think that's a fun or not so fun fact that I didn't even realize there are no comedy artists, even though they've released records since records have been around, there's no comedy artists in the Hall of Fame. And they rarely get up for any, mainstream Grammys.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like a traditional rock act like, Dolly Parton. So I don't think that's probably a bad example.
She's a rock. She's in the hall.
Yeah, I
She's
know,
a rock
I know,
star now.
I know. My point being that that their definition of rock is pretty fuzzy at this point. So I think it wouldn't be totally out of the question for them to consider me. But that's their call.
You did do a Pixie song, so not that they're in the hall. They should be in the hall, but
Are they not in the hall yet? Oh my goodness.
they never even nominated, which is kind of
Oh, well, they
ridiculous.
should definitely be in the hall way before me.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But since I'm asking you all these questions that are sort of about like your entire career, about possibility of the hall, the possibility of the Super Bowl, like did you when you started off in Linwood with your accordion and recording, in a bathroom stall, was it, or in a closet? Did you think like you'd still be did you think this was going to be your career? It's like such an unorthodox career.
No, no, obviously not. I mean, I
Well,
was
I
doing
don't
it.
know. Maybe you did. Some people.
I was doing it for fun, just to amuse myself and my friends, and I thought it'd be cool to get some airplay on the radio through the Dr. Demento show, and maybe I had rock star fantasies, but I never really thought that I was gonna have a have a career in show business. I always thought, okay, I'm a good student and I study hard and I work hard and I'm going to grow up and be an adult and have a real job, And when I was 12 years old, I said, okay, well, I'm going to be an architect, and went to school, got my degree. And by the time I graduated from college, I was like, I don't think I want to be an adult. I think I'd rather, give this, comedy musician thing a shot first and see if that pans out.
I think it panned out.
So
Think you're doing all
far,
right. All right, so Super Bowl 2025, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, class of 2025. In the meantime, there is a tour coming up. I'm looking forward to that. So I'll
yes,
see you at
indeed.
that.